Hour of convening has arrived, and the Senate will now come to order. This time I would ask that all unauthorized persons exit the chamber. It's my distinct honor to recognize the leprechaun from the 53rd District.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is St. Patrick's Day, Lucky Charms, green clovers, and all that stuff. So, it is St. Patrick's Day. It's also National Green Week, and I'm not sure what else happened, but in 1762, the first St. Patrick's Day parade in New York City happened. Mr. President, the journal's been read and found to be correct.
Thank you, sir. Is there objection to dispensing with the reading of the journal? The chair hears none. The reading of the journal is dispensed with. Is there objection to the confirmation of the journal? The chair hears none, and the journal is confirmed. All senators, all three of you, four. If you have bills or resolutions, please bring them to the Secretary's desk at this time. Mr. Secretary, first reading of Senate bills and resolutions, please.
Senate Bill 297 by Senators Miller of the 49th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act providing a method of compensating the members of the Board of Education of Hall County, approved February.
State and local government.
Senate Bill 298 by Senators Miller of the 49th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act creating a Board of Commissioners for Hall County, approved March 21st.
State and local government.
Senate Bill 299 by Senator Mullis of the 53rd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 3 of Title 46 of the OCGA, relating to generation and distribution of electrical
regulated industries.
Senate Resolution 264 by Senator Mullis of the 53rd, a resolution honoring the life of Navy Lieutenant Commander Hugh Lester Campbell and dedicating an intersection in his memory and for other purposes.
Transportation.
Senate Resolution 265 by Senators Rahman of the 5th and others, a resolution urging the Congress of the United States to abolish the practice of involuntary sterilization of women in custody of the United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement.
Rules.
Senate Resolution 267 by Senators Rahman of the 5th and others, a resolution supporting the creation of a national infrastructure bank and calling upon Congress to pass
Rules.
This completes the order, Mr. President.
The question was raised in Committee on Assignments if the senator from the 53rd has any more intersections in your district to name. Mr. Secretary, first reading of House bills and resolutions, please.
House Bill 724 by Representatives Allen of the 40th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act creating the Board of Commissioners of Cobb County, approved June 19, 1964.
State and local government.
House Bill 730 by Representatives Carpenter of the 4th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to create and establish the Whitfield County Public Facilities Authority to provide for severability.
State and local government.
House Bill 734 by Representatives Gamble of the 15th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act to provide a new charter for the city of Urali, approved May 7, 2013.
State and local government.
House Bill 742 by Representatives Dubnik of the 29th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to continue the existence of the Gainesville City School
State
District.
and local government.
House Bill 743 by Representative Dickey of the 140th, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act providing a new charter for the city of Fort Valley, approved August 22nd.
State and local government.
House Bill 749 by Representatives Gillard of the 162nd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to create and establish the Chapman County Building.
State and local government.
House Bill 750 by Representatives Gillard of the 162nd and others, a bill to be entitled an act to create the Chapman County Legislative Gang.
State and local government.
This completes the order, Mr. President.
Mr. Secretary, will you please read reports of standing committees?
Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Health and Human Services has had under consideration the following legislation, has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 316 do pass. House Bill 346 do pass. House Bill 370 do pass. House Bill 567 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Watson of the 1st. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Insurance and Labor has had under consideration the following legislation, has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 509 do pass. House Bill 241 do pass. House Bill 146 do pass by substitute. House Bill 205 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Burke of the 11th. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration the following legislation, has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 154 do pass. House Bill 470 do pass. House Bill 548 do pass. House Bill 553 do pass by substitute. House Bill 258 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Strickland of the 17th. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Public Safety has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 43, due pass by substitute. House Bill 631, due pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Albers of the 56th. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Regulated Industries and Utilities has had under consideration the following legislation, has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 392, due pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Cowsert of the 46th. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Special Judiciary has had under consideration the following legislation, has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 97, due pass. House Bill 354, due pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Jordan of the 6th. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on State and Local Governmental Operations has had under consideration the following legislation and has instructed me to report the same back to the Senate with the following recommendation. House Bill 705, due pass. House Bill 707, due pass. Senate Bill 294, due pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Anderson of the 24th. This completes the order, Mr. President.
Mr. Secretary, will you please read bills and resolutions for the second time?
House Bill 44 by Representatives Cantrell of the 22nd and others. State government, Georgia shall observe daylight savings time year-round, provide. House Bill 114 by Representative Reeves of the 34th and others. Income tax, adoption of foster care children, revised tax credit. House Bill 130 by Representative Gullett of the 19th and others. Local government, fence detection system, defined term. House Bill 459 by Representative Martin of the 49th and others. Local government, prohibit annexations of county-operated airport property. House Bill 465 by Representative Gullett of the 19th and others. Local government, imposing civil penalties upon an alarm systems contractor for a false alarm that occurs through no fault of alarm systems contractor, prohibit. House Bill 488 by Representative Scoggins of the 14th and others. Courts, increase minimum compensation for chief magistrates and others, provide. House Bill 511 by Representative Reeves of the 34th and others. State Treasury, established for revision of certain trust funds, provide. House Bill 593 by Representatives Blackmon of the 146th and others. Tax Relief Act of 2021, enact. House Resolution 204 by Representative Gillard of the 162nd and others. Judge Willie J. Lovett, Jr., Juvenile Justice Center, City of Savannah, dedicate. This completes the order, Mr. President.
It's now time for our morning roll call. It's now time for our morning roll call. Are there any motions to excuse? Chair recognizes the senator from the 33rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, you all. Ask for unanimous consent to excuse the following senators from the 35th, 38th, and 42nd for business inside the Capitol.
42nd.
Yes, sir.
Without objection, the senators from the 35th, 38th, and 42nd are excused. The chair recognizes the senator from the 31st.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 54th for business inside the Capitol.
Without objection, the senator from the 54th is excused. The chair recognizes the senator from the 13th.
Mr. President, without unanimous consent, I'd like you to excuse the senator from the 14th, please.
Without objection, the senator from the 14th is excused. The chair recognizes the senator from the 23rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 20th for business inside the Capitol.
Without objection, the senator from the 20th is excused. The chair recognizes the dean of the Senate.
Good
Who
morning,
hit the wrong button.
Good morning, Mr. President. Thank you. I ask unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 2nd, sir.
Without objection, the senator from the 2nd is excused. Are there any additional motions to excuse? The chair sees none. The secretary will call the roll. Senators, signify your presence by voting the yea switch. The secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted their attendance? We got one coming in the door over there. Have all senators voted your attendance? Got a thumbs up in the hallway? All right, Mr. Secretary. Oh, we got one coming. And the senator from the 16th needs to check his machine. There you go. All right, we're good now. Hallway's clear. Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. All right, it's now time for a morning devotional, and I'd ask that all senators take your seats and cease all audible conversations. Doorkeepers, please secure the chamber at this time. The chair would like to recognize the senator from the 50th to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance and to introduce to us our chaplain of the day.
Thank you, Mr. President. Join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the Georgia flag. I pledge allegiance to the Georgia flag, the principles for which it stands, wisdom, justice, and moderation. Thank you, Mr. President. Today I'm honored to introduce Reverend Keith Cox, who is the pastor at Clarksville United Methodist Church, my home church that I grew up in. This is my first pastor of the day, so it's a special honor. Pastor Keith received his Bachelor of Arts from Mercer University in Human Services. He was the first recipient of the Papa Joe Hendricks Humanitarian Award. He received his Master's of Divinity from the Interdenominational Theological Center and Gammon Theological Seminary and was a recipient of the Excellence in Preaching Award. He's been serving as pastor in the United Methodist Church for 24 years and was ordained as elder in full connection in the North Georgia Conference in 2003. Pastor Keith and his family also served as missionaries with the Caribbean Christian Center for the Deaf for 2 years. He served as the president for the Southeastern Jurisdiction Deaf Ministry for the United Methodist Church for 2 terms. He has pastored churches in 6 of the eight districts within the North Georgia Conference. Currently, as I said, he is the senior pastor at Clarksville First United Methodist Church. He serves the community in different capacities. He is a member on the District Superintendent's Committee for the Northeast District of the United Methodist Church, Connection Group Leader for the pastors and lay leaders for Habersham and Rabun County, Chair of the Committee for the Grace Gate Medical Clinic in Habersham County, volunteer chaplain at Habersham Medical Center, and participates in the monthly pastor prayer ministry for Habersham County. He and his wife, April, who we're also honored to have in the chamber today, have been married for 24 years. April is a teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing for Habersham County. Their daughter, Megan, is married to Joshua Booker, and they are expecting their first child in August 2021. And their son, Jordan, is a senior at Habersham Central. He also joined us today. And please join me in welcoming Pastor Keith Cox.
I want to start by thanking God for giving me this opportunity to speak today. I want to thank my wife, April, our son, Jordan, our daughter, and son-in-law, Megan and Josh, for their prayers and support. I want to thank Mr. President, Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan, the Secretary of Senate, David Cook, and I'm extremely grateful and thankful to Senator Bo Hatchett for inviting me to speak today. Members of the Senate, it is with much honor and privilege to be invited to be a part of this time-honored tradition of the Georgia Senate to serve as chaplain of the day. As Bo mentioned, my family and I, we live in Habersham County, Clarksville, Georgia, but what you do not know is I was born in Albany, and I did say Albany. Albany. I am a Phoebe Putney baby. My hometown is Miller County. That's Miller County, which is Colquitt, Georgia, about 20 miles from Bainbridge. I graduated high school from Central High School in Bibb County, Macon, and also graduated from Mercer there as well in Bibb County, Macon. I've pastored all over North Georgia. Now, as a child, as a teenager, as a young adult, there was just one sermon that I would hear from different pastors, several different preachers, that always stood out to me. This one message preached by many different preachers when I was a child, a teenager, young adult. Even I heard this sermon in Vacation Bible School or Sunday school. It had to do about being lukewarm and being spit out of Jesus' mouth. And I can remember as a child, I didn't quite understand what it meant to be lukewarm and how that was important. And again, every time I would hear this sermon, the pastor would focus about you should be hot or you should be cold, but you should never be lukewarm. And the hot is a reference to what it means to be on fire for God, not to be ashamed to be a believer in Christ, that you are excited about living a life as a believer, that you are a follower of Christ. If you are hot, then you're on fire. But if you're cold, that means you're not a believer. Now, this lukewarm that we should not be, simply means for those who go to church on Sunday. You get in your Sunday best, you grab your Bible out of the trunk of your car, you go into the church, you put a little money in the offering plate, and you sing the hymns, you hum the hymns, and then you go back home. And then Monday through Saturday, you spend your time about what you want to do. You're not praying, you're not reading your Bible. Basically, Sunday you're going to give to God, but Monday through Saturday it's all about you. It's about straddling that fence. Now, I agree with that. There's nothing wrong with that way of teaching and preaching. I agree with that 100%. But I believe there's a deeper understanding and a deeper meaning. For most of you today, if you've ever heard that sermon about hot or cold and lukewarm, that's pretty much how it was presented to you. Today, I'm going to give you a new understanding, a new meaning. You're about to hear something you probably have never heard before. So let me remind you of this scripture in Revelation 3:14 through 16. To the angel of the church in Laodicea writes, "These are the words of the Amen, the faithful and true witness, the ruler of God's creation. I know your deeds, that you're neither cold nor hot. I wish you were either one or the other. So because you are lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, I'm about to spit you out of my mouth. Now, to truly have this deep understanding or this deeper meaning of this passage of Scripture, you need to have some information about this town, Laodicea. More importantly, you need to understand the water system, the water supply of this town. Quick question. How many of you have ever received a text message from your local water department that said that there's a boil water advisory? You ever gotten those? All right, so we know what that means. Well, this city in Laodicea would have been on a 24-hour, 365-day boil water advisory. The water system in this town was horrible. It was unhealthy. It was full of germs, diseases. It was polluted. It was undrinkable. If someone was to drink this water, it would cause them to vomit. Why was this water unhealthy? Why was it polluted? Why was it not drinkable? Well, because it was lukewarm. Now here we go. Pay attention to what we're about to see. We read about being lukewarm. We read about Jesus spewing you out. You heard me say, because this water is lukewarm. There's diseases, there's germs, it's unhealthy. And if you were to drink it, you yourself would vomit. Well, how do we know? How do we know that this water is lukewarm? Because I'm just telling you right now. How do I know this? How is that statement true? Well, if you look at the location of the town of Laodicea, north of it, there's another town called Hierapolis. And in this town, north of Laodicea, was this hot springs, boiling water. People would go there to get healthy. They believed you could go to these hot springs and you could be healed. South of the town is also known Colossae. And they had these cold springs where there was clean, refreshing water to drink. And so Laodicea is here. North is the hot spring. South is the cold spring. And during that time, the water system, there was a piping system. And so when the water connected, the hot and the cold came together, it became lukewarm. Hot water, cold water coming together, forming in this town of Laodicea undrinkable water, full of germs, diseases. So now, being hot and being cold has a new meaning. Before, if you were hot, you were for Jesus. And if you were cold, you were against Jesus. But now, hot and cold means that you are pure. Now, I can remember when I was a child, and I would get a splinter in my hand. My dad would go and take one of my mom's needles. He would reach in his pocket, take out a lighter, and he would put that flame under that needle. Why would he do that? To sterilize it. So that when he goes digging around in my hand, there would be no infection. There'd be no infection. Many of you have been to Alaska or other countries where there's mountains and snow and ice, and you can go to those rivers where the water has melted, and because that water is so cold, it is so pure that you can reach in and just drink the water from the river. Now, I guess you want to be careful if there's not a bear upstream, doing his business, but that water is so cold and so pure. So this hot and coldness has to do with purity. It's about living a life of purity. Well, how does one live a life of purity? By having the mind of Christ, by applying God's holy word. The Bible is God's truth, and we have the responsibility to live our lives according to Scripture. As a pastor, I have a responsibility to preach truth and grace according to God's word. What does being lukewarm mean? It means that you allow the world to influence you. You're allowing the world to pollute you. The world says that there are many ways to heaven. The world says there are many ways to heaven, but the Bible says there is only one way to heaven, and that's through a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. The world says that you can live anywhere you want to, any type of lifestyle, but the Bible is very clear on how one should live their life. So what did Jesus mean when he said, I will spit you out of my mouth because you are lukewarm? Well, this is what I believe. I believe every one of us, everyone in this world is going to stand face to face with Jesus Christ. When you take your last breath, everyone's going to stand face to face. And he's going to say to those who are polluted by this world, to those who are lukewarm, he's going to say, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. But those who have a relationship with Christ, those who live a life of purity, he's going to say, well done, good and faithful servant. So as you continue to vote on these bills that affect our children, our youth, adults, older adults here in the state of Georgia, I want to encourage you to vote with a pure heart. Vote with a pure heart and a pure mind. Don't allow any outside source to influence or pollute how you vote. And when you vote, I want you to be hot and cold. I want you to be pure. I want you to be hot and cold, not lukewarm. Let us pray. Please stand with me. Please stand as we pray. Let us pray. Dear Lord, we give thanks for this day. I pray over each of these senators. My first prayer for them is strength. Lord, they have worked very hard, and they're coming to an end of this session. Just a few more days are left. So give them your strength, emotional, physical, spiritual, mental. Renew them. Give them strength to finish strong as they continue to make these votes daily. I also pray for their families. Lord, it's very difficult to be away from their wives and husbands and their children. So I pray a blessing over each of their homes, that you would have peace and rest for them in their homes. And then finally, dear Lord, I just pray for unity among this body. And I believe one of the ways that we can come together and start with unity is to pray together the prayer that Jesus taught us to pray by saying, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen. Amen. Thank you.
All right, the Senate will come back to order. Are there any unanimous consents? The chair sees none. Chair recognizes the senator from the 4th. Actually, the chair is going to take a moment of personal privilege and wish my wife a happy birthday. You know, her birthday's obviously on St. Patty's Day, but we view this as her birthday, not St. Patrick's Day, so I might be the only person in this room that doesn't have green on because I don't own green. It's a birthday party tonight, not a St. Patty's Day party. But happy birthday, Brooke, wherever you're watching. She's not watching, I guarantee you. Chair recognizes the senator from the 4th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to recognize a great man from our area, from our district, George Carvey Snell. Carvey passed away this past weekend. He went to his heavenly home, and he was at Memorial Hospital in Savannah when it happened. He's a prominent businessman in Canary County community for many years. Carvey was best known as the owner and publisher of the Metter Advertiser, which many of y'all have probably seen at different times. And if you remember, Metter's slogan is, "Everything's better and better." Thank you, sir. The community newspaper he purchased and operated with his mother, Virginia Snell, for many years. As editor and publisher of the newspaper, Carvey covered the news and events of the community and was often seen throughout town with the iconic camera around his neck. Carvey's first love was his family, of course, and his favorite activity was anything that involved his wife of 47 years, Susan, and their grandchildren, and of course his son, Stephen, and his wife, Brandy. He was often found on the family farm fishing with his grandchildren or at family cookouts. He was a lifelong community supporter of Metter and Canary County and was often affectionately referred to as Mr. Metter. If you knew Carvey, you would really have believed that. His greatest community involvement was another Blooming Festival. In 1992, Carvey saw a need to promote his hometown and help draw businesses to the downtown retailers. He envisioned a full field day with special promotion throughout the town. The event has grown to what is now a premier regional springtime celebration with more than 200 vendors and over 15,000 people in attendance. As an avid supporter of the local school system, Carvey was also instrumental in the formation of the Canary County Foundation for Public Education. He was a charter member of the organization and served as treasurer for several years. Today, the foundation continues to support educational opportunities for countless youth in local school systems, providing field trips, funding, learning tools, and other resources for classrooms. For those of you that do not have a foundation in your school system, you need to set up one. This school system, or this foundation, has raised over $700,000, and it's gone back into the schools for the children. Carvey was a member of Metter JCs. He was also instrumental in the acquisition of property on which Metter County Recreation Department now sits. He served on the Recreation Board. He was named Canary County Citizen of the Year in 2008. Carvey was really an unsung hero for the community, working behind the scenes with government agencies and businesses to resolve conflicts whenever possible. His goal was always to resolve community conflict, never to sensationalize it. Thank you, Carvey Snell, for being such an advocate for one of my hometowns, Metter, Georgia. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the will.
Thank you, Senator. The chair recognizes the minority leader for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. I rise today on a point of personal privilege for Women's History Month. Georgia native Alice Malsenia Tallulah Kate Walker, born February 19, 1944 in Eatonton, Georgia. Walker is an American novelist, short story writer, poet, and social activist. In 1982, she published the novel The Color Purple, for which she won the National Book Award for hardcover fiction and the Pulitzer Prize for fiction. She also wrote the novels Meridian, 1976, and The Third Life of George Copeland, 1970. Both of Walker's parents were sharecroppers, though her mother also worked as a seamstress to earn extra money. Walker, the youngest of 8 children, was first enrolled in school when she was just 4 years old at East Putnam Consolidated. When she was 8 years old, Walker sustained an injury to her right eye after one of her brothers fired a BB gun. Since her family did not have access to a car, Walker could not receive immediate medical attention, causing her to become permanently blind in that eye. It was after the injury to her eye that Walker began to take up reading and writing. As the schools in Eatonton were segregated, Walker attended the only high school available to blacks, Butler Baker High School. There she went on to become valedictorian and enrolled in Spelman College in 1961 after being granted a full scholarship by the state of Georgia for having the highest academic achievements of her class. She found 2 of her professors, Howard Zinn and Stoughton Lynn, to be great mentors during her time at Spelman, but both were transferred 2 years later. Walker was offered another scholarship, this time from Sarah Lawrence College in New York, and after the firing of her Spelman professor, Howard Zinn, Walker accepted the offer and graduated from Sarah Lawrence in 1965. An avowed feminist, Walker coined the term womanist to mean a black feminist or feminist of color in 1983. Following graduation, Walker briefly worked for the New York City Department of Welfare before returning to South. She took a job working for the Legal Defense Fund of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People in Jackson, Mississippi. Walker also worked as a consultant in Black history to the Friends of the Children of Mississippi Head Start program. She later returned to writing as writer in residence, Jackson State University, and to Lugo College. In the fall of 1972, Walker taught a course in Black women's writing at the University of Massachusetts, Boston. In 1973, before becoming editor of Ms. Magazine, Walker and literary scholar Charlotte D. Hunt discovered an unmarked grave they believed to be that of writer Zora Neale Hurston. Walker has written several other novels, including The Temple of My Familiar and Possessing the Secret of Joy, which featured several characters and descendants of characters from The Color Purple. She has published a number of collections of short stories, poetry, and other writings. Her work is focused on the struggles of Black people, particularly women, and their lives in a racist, sexist, and violent society. In 2000, Walker released a collection of short fiction based on her own life called The Way Forward is with a Broken Heart, exploring love and race relations. In 2007, Walker donated her papers, consisting of 122 boxes of manuscripts and archive material, to Emory University's Manuscript Archives and Rare Book Library. In addition to the draft of novels from The Color Purple, unpublished poems and manuscripts and correspondence with editors, the collection includes extensive correspondence with family members, friends, and colleagues. One more second. In 2013, Alice Walker published 2 books, one of them entitled The Cushion in the Road, Meditation and Wandering as the Whole World Awakes to Being in Harm's Way. The other was a book of poems entitled The World Will Follow Joy, Turning Madness into Flowers. Those are new poems. We celebrate the life, work, and accomplishments of Georgia's own Alice Walker, whose life circumstances guided her own experiences, and for many of us who have been blessed by her gifts. Thank you, Mr. President. I leave.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 53rd for a point of personal privilege.
Mr. President, in an attempt to go back to one of my motherlands from my ancestors, today is St. Patrick's Day. It's St. Paddy's Day to us from Ireland, and I do believe it's very close to many of us here. St. Patrick was a patron saint from Ireland. He was born in England and carried off to Ireland in 432 A.D. St. Patrick today is revered first in prayer, Mr. President, and then in celebration, heavy celebration. In 1762, the first St. Patrick's Day parade in America was in New York City. And they celebrate in Savannah and in Dublin too. And you know, Dublin, Georgia is named after Dublin, Ireland. And did you know that Dublin, Georgia is the fastest growing city in Georgia? It's Dublin every day. So as we celebrate St. Patrick's Day, remember in your celebration to eat Lucky Charms, those magically delicious green clovers in there. So as we celebrate such a fabulous celebrating day, and remember, you should be wearing green today. And for the Senator the 24th and the 13th, I can understand why they want to be pinched. But many others, I don't quite understand why they want to be pinched. But remember, to celebrate St. Patrick's Day in the golden effort of truly celebration. Mr. President, I yield the well.
I don't know what just happened. Chair recognizes the senator from the 5th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. My dear colleagues, I come here this morning with heavy heart. According to the group Stop AAPI Hate, there have been over 3,000 reported incidents of racially motivated crimes against Asian Americans in the United States. Just the other day, my colleagues, the senator from the 48th, Dr. Michelle Au, spoke out against hate crimes committed towards the Asian American community. What happened yesterday in Metro Atlanta was a horrifying and disturbing example of targeted racial violence. This tragic attack never should have happened. These malicious crimes are taking place in our own backyards. We must come together and stand up against xenophobia and any hate crimes committed against Asian American or anyone in our communities. I'm horrified, outraged, and devastated by this violence and deeply concerned for the members of the Asian American community in Georgia and across the country. Hate must not have a home in America or anywhere. My family and I are praying for the victims of this horrific act of violence. I ask my colleagues in the Georgia General Assembly to join me in standing up against all kinds of hate towards anyone, anywhere. This body passed HB 46 last year. I ask we continue to support the victim of hate crimes in Georgia by speaking up immediately against xenophobia, hate, and violence directed towards the Asian American community. I'd like to thank the law enforcement for taking swift action and apprehending the suspect. I have full confidence in our law enforcement agencies to bring justice to the victims and their families. We must never stop fighting against hate. Please join me for a moment of silence for the 8 victims of this tragic act of violence.
Please stand for a moment of silence.
Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the word.
Thank you, Senator, for your comments. Chair recognizes the senator from the 13th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to echo what the senator from the 5th just said yesterday. As you well know, that was just a pure hate crime. It was not white supremacy. It was not a white guy. It wasn't a black guy. It wasn't an Asian colored person. It was just pure hate. Pure hate. It was not a gun violence crime. He happened to do it with a gun, but guns is not the problem. The problem is this man had hate in his heart. This man was stopped in my county, my home county, by our sheriff's department. And I want to give a shout out to those men and women in law enforcement who do the job every day that sometimes we in this chamber and other chambers pick on them about the job they're doing. And I want to say, they got it wrong yesterday. Our sheriff is Sheriff Billy Hancock. They got it wrong in the paper. They got it wrong on the internet. They got it wrong. These guys have done this over and over again with criminals and people who have committed these heinous acts and stopped them in our community. I don't know why they come through Crisp County, but if they come through there, we're going to get them. They're going to get them, and they're going to hold them, and they're going to try them, and I hope and pray that they lock them and throw the key away, whatever it takes against this kind of violence. But I want to give a shout out to the law enforcement people, especially in Crisp County, for the job they did yesterday of stopping this guy and at least getting him in jail so we will get justice for these people that he just plain out murdered. Thank you, Mr. President. I'll yield the will.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 41st for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today to tell a story that will be familiar to many of you all. It comes from my faith tradition. The way the story goes is that there used to be a pool that existed, and that pool, whenever the waters would get troubled, they believed that an angel would come down and make the waters move. And around that pool, there was a great number, is what our scriptures tell us, of people who had all types of maladies, who sat around that pool. And they would wait for the waters to be troubled, and the first one who got in the water, they would walk away healed. And the way that our tradition tells us is that people began to ask some questions about, we've got all these people who are sitting around these waters, waiting for them to be troubled. And there were some who said, well, I can't get in because I don't have anybody to help me to get into the water. And so Jesus came along and helped that out. But I tell that story not to talk about Jesus, but instead to talk about the fact that the waters in the pool are being troubled right now. It's folks up in Washington, Senator 28, who are troubling the waters. The waters are troubled, and a Medicaid expansion is now available to us at a low, low price. Brothers and sisters, siblings, we have over 400,000 Georgians sitting around that pool of water just waiting for someone to help them get in. And y'all, we are those people. We are those people. The waters are troubling. And so I urge you, dear friends, I urge the governor to please, let's help those 400,000 folks get in that pool where the waters are troubling, so that folks can have access to the medical care that they so desperately need. I yield the well.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 14th for a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. President. And just as many of our other colleagues included the senator from the 5th, it's a tragic event that happened yesterday. And it happened in one of the counties that I represent, which is Cherokee County. And I stand here today to tell you and everyone that can hear us, that's not representative of Cherokee County. Cherokee County is a county that is welcoming. It is a county that is thriving right now. I believe we're like 5th fastest growing county. We're a county right now that's appalled that anyone would target, regardless of the business, regardless of the ethnicity. And I want to reach out right now and give a shout out to Frank Reynolds, our sheriff, who worked with the sheriff in the 13th district as well to apprehend this individual, but most of all, to my brothers and sisters, regardless of where they are politically or ethnicity in Cherokee County, and let them know Cherokee County is a great place to live and work, and we will not tolerate this kind of activity. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 2nd for a point of personal privilege.
Good morning, colleagues. I stand with the gentleman from the 1st to honor March 17th. For many of you know, March 17th is significant in Savannah, Georgia. It is St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick's Day is not just a festival, but it's a cultural and religious celebration dating back in the days of Ireland, from their foremost patron saint of Ireland, St. Patrick. On this day, thousands upon thousands of tourists invade Savannah, Georgia. We're one of the top 5 largest celebrations of this festive celebration. If we're in Savannah right now, we would be wearing green. We would be eating green grits, maybe even drinking something green. But this day is a day that not only we celebrate in Savannah and around this United States, we celebrate it at this capital to recognize that patron saint and this cultural and traditional and religious celebration, St. Patrick's Day. And now the gentleman from the 1st.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I stand here with the senator from the 2nd also to celebrate St. Patrick's Day here March 17th. The celebration in Savannah started in 1813 by the Hibernian Society. It was a private celebration and parade, and it's expanded a little bit since then. We have visitors from all around the world. We're the 2nd largest parade in the United States, behind New York only. We have visitors from 150,000 up to 500,000 people that come to celebrate this. But it is not just a parade. It is the celebration of the St. Patrick himself. As a matter of fact, right now, as we speak, the Mass has just been over at the Cathedral Basilica now of St. John the Baptist. It is a large celebration. It is primarily Catholic, but it is not just Catholic alone. As a matter of fact, Hibernian Society was started to help support the Irish from the mother country, but it had multiple members of multiple ethnicities, including Jewish members that are still members of Hibernian tonight. That will be celebrating tonight. So I'm here with the senator from the 2nd to acknowledge and allow us to celebrate and remind us to celebrate here March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 42nd for a point of personal privilege. God bless you. To the senator from the 28th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Each year, this body carries out its one constitutionally mandated obligation, passing a balanced budget. This budget is far more than numbers on a page. It represents what we value. The proposed budget for 2022 maintains $1.2 billion in budget cuts to programs and services across Georgia compared with fiscal year 2020. At a time when millions of families are struggling to make ends meet, this budget would underfund Georgia's schools and public health programs. At a time when Georgians need more support from the state, especially after last year's $1.7 billion in budget cuts. We must ensure that our state's recovery from the pandemic is fair and equitable. We have the money to fully restore the funds that we cut last year. The supplemental and proposed budgets should have made more use of our rainy day fund. But what I want to focus on is that now we have the American Rescue Plan. Under the American Rescue Plan, Georgia will be allocated up to $4.7 billion for the explicit purpose of making up for these lost revenues from the pandemic and restoring our budget cuts. I call on the governor to issue a revised revenue estimate that would include this money, allowing us to plug the holes in our budget and fund our priorities. The largest share of the proposed cuts, $675 million, fall on public education, $400 million in K through 12, and $200 million reduction from FY 2020 in higher education. Each child in our state deserves a chance, and that starts with a quality public education. Moreover, the maintenance of equity provision in the American Rescue Plan will likely require that we fully fund our public schools according to our baseline formula, QBE, or we would risk the loss of some of that aid that's available to us, which demonstrates yet again that we have every reason to use rather than waste our federal resources. But it doesn't yet seem to me that we are letting the unique opportunity that we have with the American Rescue Plan sink in. If the Senate were to pass HB 593, we could forgo an estimated $199 million in federal aid from the ARP over the next 2 years for a teeny benefit of $23 per individual and $31 for married couples. Not worth the cost. The ARPA will also authorize us to expand postpartum Medicaid coverage for up to 12 months after childbirth. That has been a long bipartisan priority, and offer us the 5% federal match rate increase, I'll wrap up, for 2 years that would allow us to cover an estimated 500,000 Georgians at no extra cost to the state for 9 years. Rural health care has been on the precipice for the last 10 years. We've talked for years in a bipartisan manner about expanding broadband. Both of these things can be done with the money from the American Rescue Plan. We have this opportunity, and it is time to start talking about how we want to help rural hospitals and expand broadband. We have the money, it's authorized. Let's stop talking about it, let's do it. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 43rd for a point of personal privilege. She waves. Chair recognizes the senator from the 36th for the purpose of introducing the doctor of the day. Chair recognizes the senator from the 36th to introduce us to the doctor of the day.
Thank you, Mr. President. Happy St. Patrick's Day. As a proud daughter of the Shamrock Nation, I'm happy to be with you today and applaud all of us that are wearing our green. I want to welcome our doctor of the day, who is a family medicine practitioner. Dr. Rashawn Hodge received his Bachelor of Arts in Psychology from Morehouse College, and he earned his medical degree, cum laude, from the Robert Wood Johnson Medical School. Dr. Hodge completed his residency in family medicine from Morehouse School of Medicine in 2005. His passion is making the human condition better for those who are suffering. His compassion for those in need is exemplified through his leadership of several hospice programs throughout Georgia as both medical director and assistant medical director. And any of us who have had loved ones in a hospice program know what that means for the family and for the patient, to have those caring hands and that dedication to the family and to your loved one. Dr. Hodge serves on the board of directors for the Sickle Cell Foundation of Georgia, and he's the medical director for Premier Chronic Pain Care in Atlanta, Georgia. He loves spending time with his son in what spare time is left after his very full professional life. And Dr. Hodge is continuing to pursue his goal of one day becoming an international missionary. This is not his first visit to the Capitol. He has served almost annually now for some time, and we appreciate his service to us and the work that he does as a medical practitioner here in Georgia. Be sure and visit him if you need his assistance in the medical clinic today. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. We're going to move on with our business. You have a consent calendar of privileged resolutions before you. Does any senator wish to remove a resolution from the consent calendar? Chair hears none. Is there objection to adoption of the resolutions on the consent calendar? The chair hears none. The resolutions on the consent calendar are adopted. Are there any motions to withdraw and commit? The chair sees none. You have a consent calendar of local bills before you. Mr. Secretary, are there any objections filed to any bill on the local consent calendar?
Mr. President, there are no objections filed.
Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the Committee on State and Local Government, which is favorable to the passage of the bills on the local consent calendar? The chair hears none, and the report of the committee is agreed to. The questions on the passage of the bills on the local consent calendar. All those in favor vote yea, opposed nay. Secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? Have all senators voted? Anyone in the hallway clear? We got a thumbs up. Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the passage of the bills on the local consent calendar, the yeas are 49, the nays are 0, and the bills having received the requisite constitutional majority is therefore passed. What purpose does the majority leader rise?
Mr. President, I ask for unanimous consent that HB 63 be engrossed.
Mr. Secretary, please read the caption of House Bill 63.
House Bill 63 by Representatives Blackmon of the 146th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 5C of Title 48 of the OCGA, relating to alternative ad valorem taxes on motor vehicles, so as to revise the definition of fair market value of the motor vehicle to exclude certain interest and financing charges for leased motor vehicles and for other purposes. This completes the order, Mr. President.
The majority leader has moved that HB 63 be engrossed. Is there objection? There is objection. Would you like to speak to your motion? He waives. The objection waives. All right, we'll go to the board. All those in favor of engrossing House Bill 63, vote yea. Opposed, nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? Have all senators voted? Got a thumbs up from the doorkeepers. Thumbs up, or is that a 1? Thumbs up. You had to turn it sideways. Thank you. Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the motion, the yeas are 32, the nays are 17, and the motion has carried to engross House Bill 63. All right, we're going to move on to the rules calendar now. Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption of House Bill 208?
House Bill 208 by Representatives Chokas of the 138th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 4 of Title I of the OCGA relating to holidays and observances so as to provide that the second Wednesday of February of each year shall be designated as National Swearing-In Day in Georgia and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Veterans, Military, and Homeland Security recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Kirkpatrick of the 32nd. Senators McNeil of the 3rd and others offer the following Amendment 1 to House Bill 208 by deleting lines 23 and 24 and inserting the following: Navy, Marines, Coast Guard, Air Force, Army National Guard, and Air National Guard of our national defense. This completes the order, Mr. President.
The chair recognizes the best-looking leprechaun in the room, the senator from the 53rd District, to present House Bill 208.
Hey, Mr. President, thank you so much. And I'd like to explain this first. And let me thank the senator from the 7th for lending me his leprechaun hat earlier. So thank you, Senator. Oh, come on, that was funny. I don't care who you are. That's funny right there. Okay, but I have a great measure for you to consider this morning. It's House Bill 208.
I quieted them down, and now you stir them back up. So let me get them back.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate that. House Bill 208 is a measure that provides that the second Wednesday in February of each year be designated as the National Swearing-In Commitment Day. Now, first off, I'd like to thank all of our men and women who served in the military in this chamber, and I would like for them to stand up and let us commend them today. Senator? That is an applause. Thank you so much. Thank you. Now, I made it to the Cub Scouts, and then they vanished, and but my dad was in World War II and in the Korean War, so thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your service. This has a lot to do with that. You know, you have a National Swearing-In Day for the athletes that get scholarships to certain universities, and then you have those in universities who get scholarships to our National Football League, Basketball League, baseball, whatever. So this is for the ROTCs in schools to have a National Swearing-In Day for ROTCs, and then later on for their national choice of serving our country in the armed forces. That's actually all this does. It's a great opportunity for us to honor our military and those who are going to join our military, whether it's ROTC or junior ROTC or actually in the military. And I would like to say also that the senator from the 3rd has an amendment, and she would like to come and explain that amendment, and it would be her first time in the well, and she'll do a great job, and I know we're going to help her with that too. Also, thank you for considering it. I think this is an easy bill for us to get behind. Mr. President, I'll be happy to answer any questions, or I can just exit the well.
You've got some questions.
Okay, I figured.
Not certain if they're about the bill or
the leprechaun.
Or your infatuation with St. Patrick's Day. Chair recognizes the senator from the 2nd for a question.
Mr. Chairman, do you yield?
I yield to my
Mr.
friend.
Chairman, are you familiar with the armed forces called the Space Force?
No, sir.
Well, it's a new branch of armed forces, just done a couple years ago, and they too serve proudly in the armed services. I just wanted to bring your attention to the Space Force.
Thank you. If you have an amendment, that'd be a friendly one. That is new to us, I understand, though. And
by former Vice President Pence.
Now, I probably couldn't answer this, I'm in the well, but did you have interest in our Space Force at one time?
I did not, sir.
Okay, just thought maybe.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 28th for a question. To your right.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Yield.
Yes, for the senator from Brass Pro Shop.
I love it. Senator, is it not true that would make a great T-shirt?
Ah, it would. And to help your business, I think you do T-shirts at Brass Pro Shop too.
I like it. Senator, if you'll further yield.
I will for you,
for
my
some
friend.
real questions. I really wanted to ask your question on your amendment. I noticed we are.
Well, I would prefer you wait for the senator from the 3rd, if you don't mind.
Fair enough.
All right, thank you, my friend.
All right, you have no more questions.
Thank you for your vote. I appreciate your support. Have a good day.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 3rd to speak to her amendment, amendment number 1. Freshman senator.
I don't need this. This.
That generated some questions.
Could you quieten them down, please? This is a very simple amendment. I wanted to make sure that the Coast Guard, who is full-time, when you join any of the services, you're making a wonderful commitment. But when you make a commitment for the Army and the Navy and the Air Force and the Coast Guard, it's a bigger commitment. And I just wanted to move that Coast Guard up so they get the right standard in it. That's simple, so I'm sure none of you have any questions.
To the contrary. The chair recognizes the distinguished pro tem for a question.
Oh, no.
Does the senator yield? Over here.
Yes.
To your left. Does the senator yield? The senator yield?
Oh, over here. Oh, I couldn't find you. Y'all need to help me with this.
I don't know how you pull this off. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, sir. How are
Good,
you?
good, good. Well, isn't it true that you do a lot of work in the armed services, supporting the Navy, the Coast Guard, Marines, and all branches of the service in your community?
Yes, that's true.
Is it also true that
Wait a minute. You speak from, heck, I can't remember what it is.
the senator
Go ahead.
knows of what he speaks?
Yes, the senator knows of what he speaks.
Most
Golly, I
of
wish
the-
I'd done that.
Most of the time.
Did you want undercoating and floor mats with that? Never mind.
Oh,
Do you, isn't it also true that this community is very, very important to your constituency and to your district?
yes, we have one Coast Guard unit in Brunswick and 2 in Camden County, and I didn't want to face them without knowing I hadn't pull them up to the right place.
Thank you, Senator. What you're doing is an honorable thing.
Thank you.
Do you continue to yield?
I do.
Chair recognizes the majority leader to your left.
Thank you.
Over here. Thank you. Would the senator yield?
Yes, I will.
Thank you, Senator. And I do appreciate all of the contributions you've made to our military forces. And I'm looking at your amendment here, and it says the Navy, the Marines, the Coast Guard, the Air Force, the Army National Guard, and the Air National Guard of our national defense.
Yes, sir.
Do you not like the Army?
Army's not in there? Oh. I love the Army.
I feel like you've got a vendetta against me by not having the Army in your proposed amendment.
Well, I was hoping you wouldn't pick up on that.
Thank you, Senator. The Army is included on line 22. Is that not correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
You actually helped yourself because a lot of buttons just turned off when you fired that back. Chair recognizes the senator from the 28th to finally ask his question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does the senator yield?
I suppose so.
Fear not, young senator. I have a real question. Senator, should we include the merchant marines in your amendment?
I don't know. Should we? We'd be happy to. You want to make that
Would
as a
you accept a
recommendation?
friendly amendment? If
I would.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 43rd for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does the senator yield?
Yes, I do.
Senator, you named the branches of service. Can you name them in order? Of
No,
when they
ma'am,
were
I
founded?
cannot.
You cannot. Does the senator continue to yield?
Yes, I will.
In your presentation, you missed naming one of the branches, and I just wanted to make sure, as our majority leader stated, that you had the, oh, I see it, you had the Marines in there.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Senator, thank you.
So I'm good?
You still have more questions.
I think all the veterans are standing
I was
up.
trying
I
anyway.
don't know. I just
Chair recognizes the appropriations chairman to your left.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does the senator yield?
I'm not sure. Yes, I do.
Thank you. Senator, you may not know this, but the senator from the 8th thinks he is your favorite senator. And with the budget, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Which is the 8th?
That is,
Oh, he is.
To your
yes, yes.
well, you may have already answered my question. My question was going to be, with the budget currently in committee, is the senator from the 8th still your favorite senator?
Not a bit. I never liked him. I love you.
The senator has yielded the well. That was outstanding. Well done. All right, we're gonna take a second here while we're drafting a friendly amendment by the senator from the 28th. Just hold tight for 1 second. We've got it. That's how quick we are. Mr. Secretary, will you please read the amendment?
Senator,
What purpose does the senator from the 36th rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State
Mr.
your inquiry.
President. Mr. President, in light of the performance in the well of the senator presenting the amendment, is it not true that women hold up half the sky?
Say that one more time.
Is it not true that women hold up half the sky?
I think the chair believes that's correct.
Amen. Thank you.
Ms. Secretary, will you please read the amendment?
Senator Brass of the 28th offers the following Amendment 1A to House Bill 208 by add Merchant Marines after National Guard on line 5. This completes the order, Mr. President.
The senator from the 28th want to speak to the amendment. He waives. All right, does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill or the amendments? The chair sees none. All right, we're going to take up the amendments first. First, we'll take up Amendment 1A. Is there objection to adoption of Amendment number 1A by the senator from the 28th? The chair hears none. Amendment 1A is adopted. All right, now we'll take up Amendment number 1. Is there objection to adoption of Amendment number 1 from the brilliant senator from the 3rd? Charismatic senator from the 3rd. Is there objection? The chair sees none, and Amendment 1 is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. The questions on the passage of the bill as amended. All those in favor of the bill vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 53, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed as amended. Mr. Secretary, please read the caption of House Bill 63.
House Bill 63 by Representatives Blackmon of the 146th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 5C of Title 48 of the OCGA relating to alternative ad valorem taxes on motor vehicles so as to revise the definition of fair market value of the motor vehicle to exclude certain interest and financing charges for leased motor vehicles and for other purposes. The Committee of the Senate on Finance recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Huffstetler of the 52nd. This completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 51st to speak to House Bill 63.
Thank you, Mr. President. And thank you for the pro tem for supporting my bill here today. House Bill 63 is a bill that you recognize the topic from 2 or 3 years back, dealing with the TAVT, that's the title ad valorem tax for automobiles. Currently in Georgia law, title ad valorem tax laws treats Georgians differently regarding whether they buy a vehicle or whether they lease a vehicle. When a car is sold in Georgia today, we only tax the principal. We do not tax the interest part of the sale and the financing. When a car is leased, however, we currently do tax the leasing equivalent of interest in addition to the lease principal. This bill changes the structure to create an apples-to-apples tax structure for leasing and for sales, only taxing the principal on both. Thus, regardless of need, financial status, desire, or preference, all Georgians are taxed the same when acquiring a car. When a lease reaches the end of its term and a customer elects to purchase the vehicle, then the TAVT would apply to the principal of that sale as well. So everything is apples to apples for all the vehicles. Mr. President, I'm happy to take questions or yield.
You have no questions.
Thank you for your support.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against House Bill 63? The chair sees none. Is there objection agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none and the main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? Have all senators voted? Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 54, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption of House Bill 112?
House Bill 112 by Representative Kelly of the 16th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend an act relating to torts to provide certain immunities from liability claims regarding COVID-19, approved August 5th, 2020, so as to extend applicability for 1 year and for other purposes. The Committee of the Senate on Judiciary recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Strickland of the 17th. Senators Jordan of the 6th and others offer the following Amendment 1 to House Bill 112. Amend House Bill 112 by striking line 13 and inserting the following that revises Code Section 34-9-280. 34-9-280, as used in this article, the term COVID-19 means severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus and any mutation or viral fragments thereof, or an disease or condition caused by severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus, and for other purposes. Senator Cowser of the 46th and others offers the following Amendment 2 to amend House Bill 112 by inserting after year on line 3 the following: to amend Code Section 51-16-3 of the OCGA relating to rebutable presumption of assumption of risk so as to revise gross negligence provisions and for other purposes. This completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 17th to present House Bill 112.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the Senate, I bring to you House Bill 112. The bill extends the sunset for another year on our COVID immunity bill that we passed last June last year, and that was Senate Bill 359. And that bill, given how complex the science was and still is on COVID-19, and how important it is that our medical professionals can do their jobs, that our businesses could reopen and remain open during this time and navigate this virus, especially for our small businesses. It's important at the same time that we make sure there still are precautions being taken by businesses and by our medical community based on the guidance that they get from the CDC and, of course, from the Public Health Department. And this bill strikes that balance of doing that. And all we're doing with House Bill 112 is extend the sunset on our COVID immunity law that continues to provide stability for our citizens as we navigate another year of COVID-19. And with that, Mr. President, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 53rd for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Gill.
Yes, sir.
Isn't it true that this bill's worked out very well, and the information you see on the door of any structure has been a good thing, and the business community likes this bill?
Yes, sir. As far as I know, you're going to see universal support from our business community, our big businesses, our small businesses, and it's interesting, you also don't see the lawyers outside of a couple in our chamber arguing about this bill either. It seems like this was the right balance of how to address this issue, and most importantly, as you're alluding to, provide stability. For the last year, we've done that, and Georgia has outperformed the rest of the country in a lot of ways with our economy, and this bill continues that stability. Isn't it true?
It is true, and thank you. And Senator Further, isn't it true that we need to keep this clean and send it back over to the House, and any attempt to maneuver it to a different direction would just probably kill the bill?
Yes, sir, that's true, and there are two amendments that I'm sure I'll speak on at the appropriate time, but I'll say this, any amendment you do to this at this point opens up the door for uncertainty, of course, for our businesses and our medical providers. It also opens up the door for lawyers to go in courtrooms and argue about what was really meant by the original law. It could actually create additional lawsuits, additional instability for everybody involved. And so this leaves things as it is. An amendment is just an attempt to kill the underlying bill altogether.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for doing this. And isn't it true I support this bill as a clean bill?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 42nd for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does the senator yield?
Yes, ma'am.
Senator, would you agree that corporate immunity is unnecessary for businesses that do the right thing and the reasonable thing under the circumstances?
I would partially agree with that. The challenge you have with COVID-19 is it's hard to know what the right thing is, right? And I was discussing this bill with the group earlier this morning. It's interesting to look back when we originally passed the underlying bill, the Senate Bill 359, we weren't wearing masks in this chamber at that time. I don't think anybody thought even at that point for us to be wearing masks. And so the science has evolved over time as we learned about COVID-19. And so it's difficult to say you shouldn't have some immunity for businesses because you can't always know what to do. And so but to your point, I think the bill strikes the right balance in still allowing gross negligence cases to be brought, because what that says from a legal standpoint is if you should at least be following the guidance that you're given at the time. And so we do expect businesses to take some precautions, and that's the balance you see in this bill.
Thank you.
You have no further questions.
Thank you. I ask for your support of House Bill 112.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 6th to speak to amendment number 1.
Thank you, Mr. President. So we talk a lot about essential workers in this chamber, and we have lauded frontline workers, specifically healthcare workers, doctors, nurses, EMTs, law enforcement, right? I mean, we talk about how important they've been through this crisis and this pandemic, and how much we value them. And they really are essential workers, right? We would not have been able to make it this past year but for them, and but for them showing up on the job. And even the senator from the 17th talked about how incredible our economy was doing and how we've really outperformed the rest of the country. And he talked about business. But really what we know about business is businesses is made up of workers, right? Like, if the workers don't show up, the business can't open. And we've even had senators come up here and ask for moments of silence because of law enforcement and frontline workers that have died in their communities due to COVID-19. Because they've showed up, our economy is better than most states. Our unemployment rate is lower. And of course, it's because they've continued to do the job day after day. So why is this amendment necessary, you say, right? This is just extending the time that we're going to give businesses immunity from someone suing them for COVID transmission or the like, right? So you're like, why do we need this? Well, we kind of have to step back a little bit and talk about workers generally. So when a worker is injured on the job or has some kind of, gets sick because of some kind of occupational hazard, they usually have two alternatives, right? And usually it's one or the other. Either one, they're covered by workers' compensation and they're allowed to get their medical bills paid and various other benefits. It's the system we have set up in this state, and it works pretty well. Alternatively, if a condition is not covered by workers' compensation, a worker has the right to go to a court of law and to sue their employer for acting negligently in terms of exposing them to this risk and it causing them harm, okay? So either workers' comp, this is what workers get if they're hurt. You can go to workers' comp, get those benefits, or you can go to court and make sure you get your medical bills paid and all that kind of stuff. That seems pretty reasonable, and that's our system. And I'm going to step back because some of y'all know what workers' comp is, but just generally, what is workers' compensation? Well, it's a form of insurance providing wage replacement and medical benefits to employees injured in the course of employment. And in exchange for that, the workers give up their right to sue the employer. That's really kind of the basics of it. And the benefits tend to be more limited than what you could get in court, but that is the bargain that gets struck with respect to workers' compensation. Under current law, essential workers aren't covered by workers' comp. And so you say, well, why not? Like if Dr. Al has to show up in the hospital on the job, she gets exposed to COVID, she gets COVID, something bad happens, why wouldn't that be an injury or some kind of occupational disease related to her work? Well, under the statute now, COVID-19 would be considered an ordinary disease. And it's something that she would not be able to make a claim as to workers' comp for, okay? So that's it now. So right now, essential workers can't access workers' comp due if they get sick, die, whatever, with COVID-19. And then secondarily, the COVID immunity bill that we passed last year basically takes away the right to sue as well. So the two areas of recourse that a worker has, and specifically essential workers have, with respect to having put their lives, families, health on the line, showing up every day to open and work for the businesses that we now laud, they have absolutely no recourse if they get sick. So what does the amendment do? It's pretty straightforward. All it does is it allows essential workers, and it's defined as a worker who cannot do their work remotely, right? They show up, they have to show up on the job, who contract COVID to access workers' compensation benefits. It's limited in time. It's tied to when the governor entered the public health order with respect to the pandemic, and it's tied to basically how long we were going to give businesses immunity. And that makes complete sense. And let me tell you why. It's because if we're going to give businesses immunity with respect to cases in court, cases that employees could arguably blame for, them having unsafe conditions or the like, then we need to provide some kind of alternative to the workers that we say we care about, that we value. The workers who, but for them, we would not be here today. Basically what this does, what does this amendment do? It means business is protected. Business is protected, right? They continue to enjoy this immunity. But at the same time, essential workers who have been there for us actually can get workers' compensation benefits. It is that simple. If we say we value essential workers, if we say but for them we could not be here, then we need to kind of put our proverbial money where our mouth is and actually extend some protections to them. And I will yield for questions.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 27th for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Yield.
Yes.
Thank you for the charts. It's actually quite helpful for a visual learner like me. A couple of questions. You mentioned the senator from Gwinnett County who's a doctor. What happens if she gets the pneumonia or the flu on the job currently under current law?
Under current law, it's not covered.
Why is COVID different in your mind?
Well, COVID is different because we treat it differently in terms of the pandemic. We don't shut down our economy or have stay-at-home orders or require people to wear masks because of the flu or pneumonia. I mean, this is obviously one once in a century, basically public health catastrophe. So that's why it's different, Senator.
Gotcha. Well, I would, do you further yield?
Sure.
I would say it's great to live in a state actually where we didn't shut down the economy. And it's great to live in a state where the government has not forced us to wear masks. And it's great to live in a state whose economy is thriving because of that. Your bill, though, doesn't it impact more than just a doctor? Wouldn't your bill impact a factory worker or a tech support worker or anybody who can't show up remotely? I just want to clarify because we're describing this pretty narrowly, but doesn't this, as written, go pretty broad?
It goes as broadly as people who cannot perform their job remotely. And let's be clear, while healthcare workers, we talk a lot about them, and we talk about law enforcement or first responders, I will tell you that the people in Publix or Kroger stocking those shelves every day are just as important in terms of keeping this economy going and taking care of us. So yeah, if you can't do your job remotely, you've been exposed to COVID, you get it, you get sick and you incur medical bills, then yeah, you should be able to make a claim, and prove your case under workers' compensation.
Thank you. Further yield?
Sure.
I'm curious what case law you've seen as a lawyer, because I genuinely don't know. This is an honest question. How do we effectively prove your claim that I got a virus that is infecting millions of people in society? How do I prove that I got it at Publix versus at the gym or when I was going about the rest of my life? How do we define that liability to the business and require the workers' comp to be paid versus assuming, often I would assume quite accurately, that virus was contracted elsewhere?
Well, first of all, you're correct. It would be impossible necessarily to pinpoint it, right? But that's kind of the whole point of the workers' compensation system, period. Because there are you get lower benefits, right? Or you don't have the ability to kind of go for full, trying to think what the legal word is, like in court you can get made whole, right? Workers' compensation is very, very limited. And because of that, if you make a claim, then and you get injured or you can show some kind of connection to work, right? And this is very general. You don't have all of the proof points that you necessarily have in a court of law. It's kind of this trade-off we have. Here, with respect to this, if my employer makes me go to work or I have to go to work and I go to work, right? And then within 14 days, I test positive for COVID and I have it, and then I'm injured by it. It's not just about testing positive or getting it, but you're injured by it in some way. Then you are able to make a claim.
Thank you, Senator.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 32nd for a question.
Thank you. Does the senator yield?
Sure.
Okay. Senator, I couldn't tell from your amendment whether you're contemplating including state employees, and if so, do we need a fiscal note?
So with respect to that, this is, as the gentle lady from the 32nd knows, this is the workers' comp statute that we're trying to amend, and to the extent it's applicable to state employees, then yeah, but The issue is with the fiscal note is that there is no way to really know exactly what the impact would be because we have no idea in terms of who may or may not be able to access this. There's no record, so getting a fiscal note would be absolutely impossible. And thankfully, we've got a lot of COVID relief coming down, and so hopefully to the extent there is any impact, which there would be no way to reasonably say one way or the other, we'll be able to actually cover the workers and make sure that their medical bills are covered and so that they can go about their lives.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 42nd for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the senator yield?
Sure.
I'm curious your opinion on the following line of thought that I sort of have going through my head, which is if the senator from the 27th is correct, and what's been under discussion is the impossibility of proving where one got COVID, wouldn't that suggest that we actually don't need the underlying bill at all? And as a matter of fact, that is probably the reason that we haven't seen some sort of onslaught of COVID-related lawsuits against businesses, not because we put into place HB 359 in June.
The senator knows of what she speaks.
Thank you.
Do you continue to yield?
I think I'll get down. I think I've had enough today. Sorry.
Senator has graciously yielded. Chair recognizes the senator from the 56th. Actually, I went out of order. Chair recognizes the senator from the 46th to speak to amendment number 2.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I'll try to talk fast before your eyes glaze over with this lawyer bill and did not get too deep into the legalese here. We've been through the ringer here in the last year with this COVID-19. All of us were just in an absolute panic this time last year when we were shutting down our legislature for fear that we were all going to contract this terribly deadly disease. Very highly contagious disease. Schools were shutting down. Courts quickly entered into emergency orders, shutting down the court system and tolling all of our time deadlines. The governor shut down a lot of our non-essential businesses for a period of time, and this was happening nationwide. Very frightening times, not knowing what we were dealing with, what caused this disease, how it was spread, how contagious it was there going to be any cure? If you remember, we were playing four corners defense, slowing the spread down until we could figure it out and learn a cure. And we could get a vaccine, so we knew that was one way you stop these type of viruses from spreading, like your flu shot every year. We were desperately trying to slow the spread of this so it didn't overwhelm our healthcare systems and where they wouldn't have ICU beds. Remember, we were worried about ventilators, thought that was the way to go. Initially, Dr. Fauci was saying, no need to wear a mask, but we do need to stay home where we can, especially if you are vulnerable. Later, that narrative changed. Wear a mask. We all got them on here today. Some states were shutting down businesses and stopping proximity to each other. Where they allowed them to be open, no bars, no nightclubs, no gyms, no places where you were in very close proximity. Eventually, as we began reopening, they still had limits on your capacity. Restaurants could only have 25% capacity, et cetera. The football stadiums had nobody. Baseball stadiums, nobody, till eventually some college teams began to let there be 25% capacity so you could be spaced out. We didn't know what we were dealing with. We didn't know how to stop the spread. We didn't know how contagious it was. We definitely didn't know how to treat it. And we've come a long way since then. What we did was a very sort of panic-driven reaction during our 40th day of session last year. Nobody had heard of a COVID liability bill when we suspended our session on March 16th. We came back for that remaining 10 days in June, and this bill percolated up, and it was out of a great fear of the medical community that they're going to get sued for treating these patients and not knowing exactly what the risks were and how you handled it and what the protocol should be. And the business community was frightened to death, and my God, we're going to be put out of business if we open up and let people come and then get sued if they say they got COVID-19 while they were in our premises. And if we don't open up, we're going to go out of business because we're going to go broke. So we were trying to find a compromise that would give some assurance to those businesses and those healthcare providers so that we could keep this economy going. Now, I would venture to say that any amendment to this bill is not an attempt to kill the bill. It's an attempt to get it right now that we've had a year to figure out what the risks are, how best to prevent them, how we can keep this society going and adapt to this threat, which we've done a marvelous job of doing, if you ask me. We can improve this bill by making it do what the original intent was. Without getting too far into the legal weeds, let me tell you how the law was before we enacted this legislation. Before we passed this COVID-19 liability bill, you didn't hear about lawsuits being filed against businesses for somebody catching a contagious disease like the flu or a cold or something more serious. We didn't do that. So were we reacting to an unreasonable fear, an unwarranted fear? The reason we weren't seeing those kind of lawsuits is because of a legal doctrine called assumption of the risk. People, when they place themselves in harm's way, are assuming the risk of potential injuries. You go snow skiing down the hill, you might break your leg. You see swimming pools that have a sign that says swim at your own risk, no lifeguard on duty. There are dangers in going swimming if you don't know how to swim, or more particularly if it's a young child that doesn't know how to swim. We all assume the risk of catching an illness when we interact with other human beings. Any type of communicable disease that is spread from human to human, when you go in proximity to other humans, you have the chance of catching it. So you either stay away from those people and prevent yourself from being exposed to the risk, or you assume that risk by going out in public and doing the things you might do to cover your mouth when you cough or sneeze. Wear a mask these days might become more popular as we go, but that's something that's sort of on you. And that was part of our debate about, do you shut businesses down and shut schools down or not? Well, one argument against that was nobody is forcing people to go shopping or to go to a football game or wherever large groups gather. You don't have to assume that risk. You're not required to do that. Schools might be a different story because we do require education. So what we did in this bill last year, by the way, it does not provide any protection to businesses against liability. There's nothing in there that says there shall be no liability for damages if you're a business entity. Now, healthcare is different. We had 4 provisions of our bill last year, 51-16-1, -2, -3, and -4. One was just definitions. 2, though, specifically applied to healthcare. And it said, no healthcare facility, healthcare provider, entity, or individual shall be liable for damages in an action involving a COVID-19 liability claim. So we protected healthcare from these claims. 51-16-4 covered if they put up notices what was the impact of that on assumption of risk. You will have a letter here from the Georgia Hospital Association saying, don't amend this bill. It will take away these protections we gave them. My amendment in no way impacts the two provisions that protect health care. It applies only to 5116(3), which applies to individuals and business entities. So if you're voting against this amendment from the health care perspective, don't. I'm not interfering in any way with our existing law on health care providers. They are covered. You know, this was a relatively unique bill. We're sitting here talking for an hour on a bill that's 13 lines in your notebooks because it doesn't tell you what you're extending the sunset on. All this does is extend the sunset or these alleged protections for businesses for a year. That's why I'm relating to you the underlying statute, which was our bill last year. Initially, it was Senate Bill 359. It ain't our bill that came back. I think Senator from the 18th can tell you, if I remember right, he was carrying it. This went to the House and was assigned to a committee there that completely gutted it and sent it back in this format. And we voted on it late on day 40 after he spent most of the day attempting to negotiate with the House, which resulted in 0 changes to the House version. Now is our chance to deliberate and decide how bad were we snookered? How bad was the business community snookered by that bill that didn't provide any protection for people other than health care? And here's why it didn't. The underlying law I just told you about, assumption of the risk, now can only be invoked, get the presumption of assumption of risk, if you put up a sign. You see those signs now outside of the doors of businesses. That sign reads, under Georgia law, there is no liability for an injury or death of an individual entering these premises if such injury or death results from the inherent risk of contracting COVID-19. You are assuming this risk by entering the premises. You see those everywhere. The truth is, this warning is a lie. It's not true because the part that I'm amending says there is a presumption of assumption of the risk only if you post this sign, but only for ordinary negligence. Not for gross negligence, not for reckless conduct, not for conscious indifference to the circumstances or the safety of other people. You cannot disclaim those type of lawsuits against you now. Before the bill, you could. Now you can't, and you can't even disclaim simple negligence, ordinary negligence, unless you have that sign. Or if you're an event where you're charging for entry, you put that language on the back of your ticket. So before we passed this bill, a business could have put that sign up that you're disclaiming any liability, and it would have meant what it said. Now you can't disclaim anything but ordinary negligence, and only if you post that sign. If you were the Atlanta Braves and you put it on the back of your ticket, Lord of mercy, we got 45,000 fans in here. We can't tell you who's got COVID or any other infectious disease. You could have put it on the back of your ticket. You enter here at your own risk, and you do not have a claim against us at all. Now, you do have a claim against the Atlanta Braves for anything other than ordinary negligence, even if they try to disclaim it. That is where the business community got snookered in this. What this amendment does is just change the exceptions. That it strikes them through in 2 places, and my amendment there, Amendment 2, shows you the places in the underlying law. And all it is doing is squaring this up so that what you are assuming the risk for is what that sign says. And so if it's a case of gross negligence or willful and wanton misconduct or reckless intention of harm or intentional infliction, those are not exempted. You may protect yourself from those type of claims if you post a sign or put it on your ticket. So that's the 2 places here relate to the back of a ticket or the posted sign on the front door. What's the effect of that? So I argue that this amendment clears it up and makes the warning sign mean what it says it means. So if a business puts that up, they are actually protected, or at least can raise the defense of assumption of risk like they used to be able to do before last June. They can raise those defenses in anything other than ordinary negligence, and including ordinary negligence. And so I'll leave you with this in my American Bar Association Journal, this winter's edition. I'm not putting it on your desk because I don't want to violate their copyright laws. There's an article, Brace for the Storm, the Tsunami of Pandemic-Related Litigation. Said in November of 2020, there had already been over 6,300 pandemic-related lawsuits filed. We're now several months past then. There's no telling what the total is now. Somebody mentioned earlier, well, where's all the lawsuits yet? Well, lawsuits don't have to be filed until up to 2 years after the injury, the illness, or the death from this. So they're coming, but maybe not for another year and a half or 2 years. And what we passed last year is not going to eliminate many of them at all. This amendment will make the law do what it pretends to do already. I ask for your favorable consideration of Amendment 2, and with that, Mr. President, I'll yield the well.
Senator has yielded the well. The chair recognizes the senator from the 56th to speak to the measure and the amendments.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was very involved in the beginning talking to some of our colleagues in April and May of last year, both here as well as in the House of Representatives. And it began like this. I got a phone call about mid-April from a friend in California. He said, "John, you're not going to believe it. The signs are already up." I said, "What signs are those?" He goes, "Interstate 5 in California. Did you get COVID at work? Call me now." It was the ambulance chaser, perfect billboard. And the fear ripped across the nation. I was certainly concerned about it. The governor demonstrated excellent leadership by opening our state up safely and securely, but our businesses, even with the Paycheck Protection Loan, were afraid to even open their doors. Homeowners associations were afraid to open their swimming pools. So we worked together and created a bill. Was it perfect? No. In fact, 11 o'clock on sine die, I was up on the 4th floor with a group of about 25 people trying to work on a compromise. And everybody was a little excited, and everybody was a little disappointed. I call that perfect legislation. Now, we've got an amendment number 1, which I had heard about prior to us getting in session, and it sounded, on the surface as something fairly noble because it was going to protect first responders. As a chairman of public safety and a first responder, I thought, that's something I'd be interested in. So I first called all my friends and associations. Nobody contacted them, and they were unaware of this, so it was nothing they had actually asked for. As I read Amendment number 1, we've made basically every single worker in the entire state of Georgia essential. If everybody is essential, who is not? Something doesn't add up there. We also have one of the best workman's comp programs in the entire nation. Well, there's a process for working with the Workman's Comp group. You've got to go through that group and go through the analysis, work with those folks in order to make sure we know what the impact is. So I called the Workman's Comp folk while we were here. Nobody contacted them. Then another comment was made is you don't know where you pick this disease up from COVID-19. Well, Workman's Comp is designed for an injury that happened in the workplace. So there's no connection there either. So it simply just doesn't make any sense. I appreciate everybody's concern, and I think Georgia has done a phenomenal job. And the best thing we did was create opportunity and safety protocols so people could go to work. The last thing I would say is I appreciate my friend from the 46. He's very astute, but I think we have to be very careful. We have to extend this thing for one more year, and then hopefully we won't talk about COVID-19 ever again. And hopefully in 102 years from now, there will not be another one. But let's hope this is the beginning of an end, and let's be careful. We are the #1 place to do business for a reason. Let's make sure we keep it that way. Thank you. I yield the will.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure or the amendments? The chair sees none. The chair recognizes the senator from the 17th to close debate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I know y'all love the lawyer debates, as some people say, and y'all probably, a lot of y'all have glazed over and listened to all this. I'm going to briefly address these two amendments. On Amendment 1, dealing with workers' comp, I appreciate what the senator from the 6th is trying to do, but as it's been pointed out, workers' comp, our system is a very delicate system. It's designed a certain way, and in my past life as a House member, I got to serve 1 year as chairman of a committee that worked on that in the House, and I learned then how complicated workers' comp matters are. And normally bills like that have a process that require at least a 2-year process, even getting it passed with a review you have to do. And so I'd ask you to oppose Amendment 1, and I'd encourage that to come back as something as a standalone bill so we can actually look into this and make sure that we get it right. And you already have the signs ready when you argue your bill next time, Senator. When you get to Amendment 2, look, for those that are tired of the lawyer debate, please hear me for 1 second. It's really important you know exactly what this amendment says. When you look at line 9, you see striking the words gross negligence, willful and wanton misconduct, reckless infliction of harm, and intentional infliction of harm. If this amendment passes, if you vote for this, what you're voting for is the right for someone to intentionally inflict harm at any business, not the business owner. It could be a stadium of 50,000 people, and if one person there intentionally inflicts harm, if that stadium, for example, has a sign out front saying you waive that, you can't file suit on that. I don't think there's anywhere else in our law where we have waiver of an intentional infliction of harm, reckless infliction of harm, or willful and wanton misconduct. Look, as the senator from the 56th mentioned, there's a debate we can have about this issue. Was the underlying bill perfect? No. That was something that we compromised on late last year on the last day. But it's important that we provide stability for our state, stability for our workers in our state that benefit from having the current standard we have, where you still can bring gross negligence claims, willful and wanton claims, based on what a business does. It's important those protections are still there. It's important that our businesses that have worked to reopen in our communities have stability. Have you seen these signs posted, for example, outside of businesses you go to? Do you want to change the rules now for your small businesses trying to reopen, trying to get back on their 2 feet? It's important that we continue to leave this bill in place. And it was also questions about, do you extend this out further than 1 year? Do you want to listen to us lawyers argue about this again next year? I hope we don't have to touch this next year. Hope that a year from now, this is not something we have to bring back at all. I love that this sunsets a year from now. And so I ask you, stick with me, oppose these amendments. If you want to have these debates and these issues, do it in a separate bill somewhere else and keep our state on the right path, reopening and getting past COVID-19. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator has yielded the well. All right, we'll take up the amendments first. The question is on the adoption of Amendment Number 1 by the senator from the 6th. Is there objection to adoption of the amendment? There is objection. All those in favor of the adoption of Amendment Number 1, vote yea. Opposed, nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the adoption of Amendment Number 1, the yeas are 19, the nays are 34, and the amendment is lost. All right, now we're going to take up Amendment Number 2. The question is on the adoption of Amendment Number 2 by the senator from the 46th. Is there objection to adoption of the amendment? There is objection. All those in favor of Amendment Number 2, vote yea. Opposed, nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the adoption of amendment number 2, the yeas are 13, the nays are 40, and the amendment is lost. All right, now the question, is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. The question is on the passage of the bill. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? Have all senators voted? Got a thumbs up in the hallway? Thumbs up. Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 36, the nays are 17. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption of House Bill 169?
House Bill 169 by Representatives Corbett of the 174th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 40-50-147 of the OCGA relating to requirements for issuance of a commercial driver's license or instruction permit, administration of skills test by third party, waiver or exemption, and disqualification and notice, so as to provide for requirements for issuance of a commercial driver's license and for other purposes. The Committee of the Senate on Public Safety recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Albers of the 56th. This completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 56th to present House Bill 169.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a relatively simple bill. It is for the Department of Driver Services. Currently today, in the CDL permit process, there is a federal law that goes into effect on February of 2022 that we need to match by adding an additional training class. And Part 2 of the bill simply allows, when you get your learner's permit for your CDL, that you can get it for 365 days. The current law says you have to get 180 days, and if you need to extend it, you have to go back, pay again, and renew your license. This allows it to be more efficient and less cost, and allows people the time they need to get their CDL driver's license. If there are no questions, I'll yield the will.
You have no questions. Senator has quickly yielded the well. Is there any other senator which speaks for or against House Bill 169? The chair sees none. Is there objection to the agree in the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. The question is on the passage of the bill. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? Have all senators voted? Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 50, the nays are 4. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Senator from the 56 looks like his feelings are hurt. Mr. Secretary, please read the caption of House Bill 207.
House Bill 207 by Representative Corbett of the 174th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 40 of the OCGA relating to motor vehicles and traffic so as to provide for electronic submissions of certain documentation required of manufacturers, distributors, dealers, secondary metals recyclers used for motor vehicle parts dealers and for other purposes. The Committee of the Senate on Public Safety recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Alberts of the 56th. The Senate Committee on Public Safety offers the following substitute to House Bill 207, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 40 of the OCGA relating to motor vehicles and traffic so as to provide for electronic submission of certain documentation required of owners, manufacturers, distributors, dealers, secondary metals recyclers, used motor vehicles, parts dealers, scrap metal processors, towing and storage firms, and for other purposes. This completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 56th to present House Bill 207.
Thank you, Mr. President. Hoping for unanimous vote this time, Senator from 28th. House Bill 207 is a department bill from the Department of Revenue. This is fairly simple. When you're going to take a car or a truck and you're going to bring it to a metal recycler, the law said that they would have to then take your physical title from you. They would then have to mail it in within a few days. It would get to the Department of Revenue. They would then have to take that title, put it in the system, and then destroy that title. This simply changes that they can, within 72 hours, they move that to an electronic process. They will send a picture or a scan, and within 72 hours, this will save the issuer time and money. It will save the department time and money. And I think specific to the senator from the 51st, it'll address his concerns with any vehicles. Without any questions, I will yield the well, Mr. President.
You have no questions. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against House Bill 207? The chair sees none. The question is on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute? Chair hears none, and the committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? Have all senators voted? Now they have. Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. Senator from the 56 got his wish. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 54, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Maybe you should have asked that on your first bill. Mr. Secretary, please read the caption of House Bill 497.
House Bill 497 by Representative Estration of the 104th, a bill to be entitled an act to amend the official code of Georgia's annotated so as to revise, modernize, correct errors or omissions in, and reenact the statutory portion of said code and for other purposes. The Committee of the Senate on Judiciary recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Strickland of the 17th. This completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 17th to present House Bill 497.
Thank you, Mr. President. I bring to you House Bill 497, and as you heard in the caption, this bill simply cleans up our code to make sure that our code books, those old books you see on some lawyer's shelf, or the code you see online that's on our General Assembly website actually matches the laws that we pass. Also in Section 54, you see similar language you saw in the code revision bill I brought before this body earlier this session that deals with a Supreme Court case that creates some confusion about what our law actually is and make sure that the governing law is the code itself and not the annotations that go with that. Happy to take any questions, Mr. President.
You have no questions.
I ask for your favorable support.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against House Bill 497? Chair sees none. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? Ms. Secretary, please close the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 54, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Ms. Secretary, please read the caption of House Bill 693.
House Bill 693 by Representative Meeks of the 178th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Part 1B of Article 13 of Chapter 6 of Title 40 of the OCGA, leading to operation of farm-use vehicles so as to prohibit operation of farm tractors on interstate highways, to provide for an exception and for other purposes. The Committee of the Senate on Agriculture and Consumer Affairs recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Walker of the 20th. This completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 24th to speak to House Bill 693.
Thank you, Mr. President.
The first walk-up song ever played in the Georgia Senate.
I bring you House Bill 693. This bill helps our great farmers in the great state of Georgia. This bill allows the farmer, when you have a large piece of equipment, extra wide, when you're crossing a bridge, or you got where he cannot get off the road, he has the right of way. I ask you to vote for this bill so the great people, the great farmers of the great state of Georgia can keep on producing the food that we eat, the shirt that's on your back, and the shoes you wear. Thank you.
You've got questions. If you care to yield.
I yield.
Chair recognizes the majority whip for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Senator. Will you yield?
Yes, I will.
Would you be favorable to a friendly amendment to name this the You Think My Tractor Sexy Act for Georgia?
I wouldn't have no problem with that.
Thank you.
I yield well.
The senator has yielded the well with many questions still on the board. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against? The chair recognizes the senator from the 47th to speak to the measure.
I do love the senator from the 24th. Said they, but I did have a serious question. What does this mean when we're doing maintenance on highway right-of-ways? Because they're driving up and down the interstate all the time. This bill looks like it would prohibit that, and I didn't see it in that section.
Spoken like a true gentleman. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? For what purpose does the senator from the 36th rise?
I had a question. I'm sorry the author left the well.
He seems to be open for questions at his desk.
That appears to be the case. Thank you, Mr. President.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against House Bill 693? The chair sees none. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill. All those in favor of the vote yea, opposed nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? Have all senators voted? Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 51, the nays are 2. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Apparently, the Appropriations Chairman had some questions, too. Chair recognizes the Majority Leader for a motion.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate stand adjourned until Thursday, 18 March 2021 at 10 a.m.
Ms. Secretary, please read your announcements.
Rules Committee will meet upon adjournment in room 450. Health and Human Services will meet at 1 p.m. in room 450. Natural Resources and Environment will meet at 1 p.m. in room 307 CLOB. Education and Youth will meet at 2:15 in room 307 CLOB. Retirement will meet at 2:15 in room 450. Economic Development and Tourism will meet at 3:30 in room 307 CLOB. Finance will meet at 3:30 in room 450. Judiciary will meet at 4:45 in room 307 CLOB. This completes the order, Mr. President.
Does any senator wish to make an announcement? Chair sees none. The Majority Leader has moved that the Senate stand adjourned until Thursday, March 18th, 2021 at 10 a.m. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Senate stands adjourned.